Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here, back again with another episode of Fixing It Forward for you. This time with the 1998 Chrysler Town & Country that we've been working on for some time. In a previous episode, we had diagnosed a problem with the air conditioning system that had come down to the AC compressor clutch. I have a new one in my hand today that I'm going to install, and hopefully this car is going to have cold air today. Let's stop talking, start working. My greatest concern with this job is getting access to the fasteners that hold the compressor to the engine. That's my greatest concern here, mostly because we have this guy in the way. I suppose there is also the possibility of access from underneath. That's something to always explore in these situations, and I am so fortunate to have this lift. But what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to dismount the compressor from the engine, and we'll gain access to the compressor clutch assembly. We don't need to evacuate the system or anything. The compressor clutch is separate from that. We just need to get access to it. In order to do that, we need to get it off the engine. I'm going to start by removing the serpentine belt, and then I'm going to get a look underneath to see if I have better access to those fasteners. I often get asked about, serpentine belt questions, things like that. How do I replace them? If you're lucky, they'll have a diagram like this that shows you how to route it. Here's the tensioner. It's a 15 millimeter. We're only really interested in the compressor, so I'm not going to try to get the belt off of everything. Well, you know what? I am replacing the belt, so yeah, I'll just take it all off now. It was making a bit of noise as the engine was running. Perhaps replacing it will help. I tried belt dressing, that didn't work either. I'm going to spin that tensioner just to see if that was the source of the noise. Not hearing anything or really feeling any kind of looseness in it. Alternator sounds good. Power steering. We'll replace the belt. If we still hear a noise, we'll see what's in the budget for the tensioner. As I suspected, it looks like we're going to have better access underneath the vehicle to remove the AC compressor. Looks like there's 3 fasteners, and I don't know how easy it is for you to see, but there's one that goes to the back of the block, right about where my finger is here. There's 2 more on the front above the water pump there, which is what this lower hose is going into, that also hold the top part on. So in total there's 3 fasteners, 2 on the front and 1 at the rear. This shielding is kind of in our way. I think that's going to be the first thing that I remove, just to give me better access. There are 2 10 millimeter fasteners up through these access points that I'm going to remove that attach to the front, and the rest are just held on by plastic clips. Success. Oh yeah, way better access to all this stuff. Actually, everything on the front of the engine here. Looks like these fasteners are 15 millimeter. When I was a kid, my mom used to tell me, look with your eyes, not with your hands. Little did she know I'd be doing this for a living, and looking with my hands and not with my eyes. But when you win, you win. And if I remember, or if I'm lucky and I got this right, there's only 1 more we need to worry about. A lot of stuff in the way. Try an extension. That might have done the trick. And since it just moved, I'm going to say We got all 3 fasteners. All right, see if we can't get that compressor clutch up off of here. I think we'll have easier access by removing the radiator overflow, which is just held on by this one 8mm fastener. Given that it would be best if this was just completely out of the way, I'm just going to disconnect the tube that goes over to the radiator and take the whole thing out completely. Oh yeah, all kinds of room now. I'm also going to go grab a spark plug and plug this hole. I don't want it siphoning anything out of the radiator while we're working. Experience has taught me, when it doesn't fit snug, use the clamp. You know, this light and I, we've always had issues. We just never quite gotten along. I'm gonna try to find some way to get this to stay in a workable position. That's it. Right there. I'm good right there. Looks like there's 10mm fastener in the center here. So you think it's bad? Yeah, I think I got my proof. For those of you who may not have agreed with my diagnosis, just for the heck of it though, this is the part that actually spins the compressor. I want to see if I can rotate it, because if not, I'm wasting my time. And I cannot rotate it. I'm wasting my time. This compressor's seized up. That's the reason why this AC doesn't work. So it's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. I could replace this clutch. Wouldn't mean a thing. That's why it ran for a second and then quit. I should be able to spin the compressor with that, and I cannot. Therefore, we're going to need a compressor. Since last we saw each other, we found out that it was more than just a compressor clutch that was bad. The compressor itself had locked up. Wah, wah, wah. We have since obtained a new compressor from CarPartKings.com. Link in the description to them. They are heroes in this case. Got us a brand new Denso compressor. Kind of excited about that. I've already shown you the removal of the compressor with the exception of just taking the lines off of the top of it. Now, the system has been evacuated of refrigerant, so we don't need to worry about that now. So we could just basically remove this AC compressor, which at this point, everything I've showed you up to this juncture is already covered. So the only thing we need to do beyond that is remove these 2 lines on the top, which have 2 14mm nuts on studs. Take those off, remove the lines, and we can just take the compressor all the way off the vehicle. Then we're likely going to have to swap over this manifold. And when I say manifold, what I'm speaking of specifically is where these lines are attaching to. What you see is this block, and it's likely we'll have to swap. There's 4 fasteners holding it on. We'll likely have to swap that off. And there we have it. One yucky compressor that's dundly dead. Our new compressor, and as stated, like I said, it's a nice Denso unit. Not sure if this is remanufactured or new, if I'm honest. But you can see that we have to swap this, what I'm calling the manifold, over from one unit to the other. Now this is where we get into some deep water. It really depends on how this compressor failed, if I'm honest. If this compressor failed and there's a bunch of metal shavings inside the system, we're screwed. We have to go back in there, flush all of that stuff out, blow it all out, compressed air, everything, because any of those little bits floating around in that system can clog up the tiny orifices that allow the AC system to work. I'll post links in the description to my AC videos to give you a better idea what I'm talking about. But debris inside the AC system, not good. So I'm going to open this up. Thankfully they gave us new O-rings, not just for this manifold, but also for the lines, it looks like, as well. So we can get that sealed up. Anytime you're dealing with these inverted Allen things, make sure they're cleaned out. If there's junk in there, that'll keep you from successfully removing it. You'll strip it out. All right, moment of truth. That does not look like there's a bunch of crap inside. Let me go get my light. I see a little bit of scoring, but I don't see like bits of metal like I've seen in some cases. You know what? How much is it going to hurt to take this all the way apart? Or how hard is it going to be? I'm going to say not that hard. We'll get our new parts away, sequestered. First, the clutch. What is left of the clutch? But I wonder if it's locked up as a result of like the bearing on the front, which would be an ideal situation, because if this got hot, the clutch got hot, it could have heated up the bearing and caused that to seize, and that may be the problem. I will actually be happy to see that. And if we would have went ahead with the clutch replacement, this is just about what you would have seen. You're making a mess of everything. You reckon all of it. Now we're in the gross underbelly of the compressor. Well, it worked. And now I suppose you want the big reveal. I'm not seeing metal shavings. There's the pistons. When these rotate, these all go up and down. They're two-sided. There's one on the other side and one on this side. There's a plate in the middle that is on an offset, and as that plate rotates, it pushes these up and pulls them down. All right, well, I'm knocking off the last piece here. There's the cylinders. Kind of neat looking, isn't it? This wash plate, as the compressor rotates, takes these pistons and moves them up and down, because it's got a high side, and every time the high side comes around, it pushes them this way. And then when it's on the low side, it pushes them up this way. So really, all these do is move up and down on this middle plate. So in a way, it's a 5-cylinder compressor. Well, 10-cylinder, if you think about it, because there's also this side. So you've got this side and then this side. I don't know, cool looking. As I stated earlier, I'm going to need to swap this plate over. Now, I did take the old compressor apart. Be advised that you may need to return your old compressor for a core. If that's the case, then do not take it apart. I did it in this case just to see if there were metal shavings. You might get enough, just when you swap this manifold plate over, you might get enough information and find out whether or not there's a bunch of metal shavings in there. And it's pretty obvious when it goes that way and there's metal shavings everywhere. And if there was, I would be taking a different approach. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that I'm going to get an impact for this. It's worth mentioning that they mention in the instructions to also replace the receiver dryer at the same time as replacing the compressor. Unfortunately, I'm not doing that today. I don't have it. But be aware that there may be certain stipulations required in order to maintain the warranty on your compressor. I think it's important to note that the oil for the compressor is already in the compressor, so you don't want to tip it over too far because you don't want that to leak out. Now, they gave me a new O-ring, but this is a new O-ring. I'm just going to reuse this one. If you're concerned about how this goes back on, just look. You've got this little port right here that matches up with that, so it would go on just like this. And I'm going to reuse those old fasteners off the old compressor. And I will use my impact to install them, but I'm not going to go full blast with it, just about like that. And I really want to avoid, we're exposed right now, I really want to avoid getting dirt and debris down in here. So I'm going to leave this rag on top of this compressor as I fish it down in there, just to make sure. Well, how about a clean rag? I'm going to put a clean rag on top of it while I put it down in there, just to ensure that I don't get junk into the compressor, the new compressor. That would be not good. There we go. This radiator hose was the biggest pain in the butt. I think we're good though. I think the hard part might be over. I'm just going to get this fastener up here started. I'm not going to run it down all the way. I still have that one on the engine block to put in. There, I can still move it around. While I'm at it, just to further ensure that I don't get stuff down inside the compressor, I'm going to replace the O-rings on these lines and reattach these lines. So low side, which is the larger O-ring. Before I install it, I'm just going to take a little bit of refrigerant oil, put it on the O-ring to make sure that it's nice and lubed up before it goes into the compressor. This will help prevent it from getting rolled over or damaged in some way during installation. Same with the other one. The high side's the smaller one. O-ring's looking pretty dry and crusty. Good. Make sure you push these down so they're flush and the O-rings seat before you run the fasteners down. Otherwise, they might not seal. And you don't need to really crank these down, you just need to snug them. The O-ring does the work for the sealing. Right now the system is pretty much sealed up. I'm going to reconnect the compressor clutch connection right here on the top. You might remember this nut. There's another fastener coming off the flange onto the block. These are all 15 millimeter. We can get to the other one from up top, but what I'm going to do before I get there is I'm going to fish my new serpentine belt up through the bottom and get that pretty much in position so that after I tighten that final fastener, I can just install the serpentine belt and be ready to go. These are always such a pain to install when they're new. All right, it's close. Here's the final fastener for the compressor. Forgot, shorter ratchet worked better. The compressor's in. Now, the real fun. I fished the belt up over all the stuff. Now it's time to see how well I did. That was like way easier than expected. But it's in the grooves on the power steering pump. It's routed the way it's supposed to be routed. Right here is the routing. So it's all up on there like it's supposed to be. Gonna put the overflow back. The compressor's not coming back out, so I'm not worried about it. All in all, that compressor replacement was not bad. But as I said, if you've got metal throughout the system like there can be with a compressor failure, you need to address that. We're fortunate enough not to have that problem today. But if we did, we'd be singing a very different tune. Now we put a vacuum on it, let it sit, make sure there are no leaks. If there aren't any leaks, we charge it up, we hit the button, and hopefully we get cold air. We hope. Now let's clean up, put our tools away, come back later, about a half hour. I don't anticipate having to go back in there and remove the compressor or anything, so I'm just going to reinstall the splash shield and the left front wheel on this side. All right, once again, we're back to that 29 inches of mercury. As far as the vacuum, it's been on there for about 25 minutes or so. I'm just going to close the dials, let it sit. If it's able to hold that vacuum for another, let's say 25-30 minutes, I'm going to say that the system is sealed up enough to add refrigerant and do just that. And we're back. It's been about 25-30 minutes-ish. I don't know, wasn't keeping track. But in that entire time, the needle has not moved. So it's still right about 29, which is where I would expect it to be. So now comes the task of refilling the system. But before I do, I know I put dye in it last time, but I'm going to add a little bit more, once again, to the feed hose before I run the refrigerant in. And I'll just put a little bit in here. As far as the oil for the compressor, it already came with the oil that was required. I checked the instructions and everything else. It didn't say to add any prescribed amount of oil or any of that kind of stuff, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. And you want to wear gloves when you're working with this dye. From experience, I can tell you that if it gets on anything, and I mean anything, it will be there for a while. All right, we already have an open can here, so I'll start with this one. I'm also going to get my thermometer, as I did before, check the shop temperature, put it in the vents, and sort of use that to gauge how much of a charge to put in. I don't know exactly how much to put in. I don't see a sticker or anything telling me necessarily. Oh, well, wait a minute. I found it. It takes the dual unit 3 pounds or 1.35 kilograms. So I'll need 3 pounds total to do the entire system. And each one of these is 14 ounces, so they're almost a pound. So I think I have just the amount here. Got one final can that's 19 ounces. So between all of these, I believe I'll have enough. I'm gonna grab that thermometer. Shop temp is about 79 degrees today. And a little bit humid too, so we've got something to add a heat load. I'm gonna open up the valve, and then something I often forget. I was used to charging up AC systems with machines that took care of all the air and did all that fun stuff, but with this, I'm just gonna purge out the air out of this line, because this line has a little bit of air in it. I don't want to do too much because I don't want to lose too much of that oil, but okay, that's enough. And that will make sure that there's refrigerant in this line and not air. So I won't be adding air to the system, which makes it less efficient. My one regret with this job is not adding the receiver dryer. Kind of wish I had done that, but we didn't have it at the time. Just gonna move forward. All right, let's start it up, turn on the air conditioning, and start adding some refrigerant. Gonna add it to the low side. Hopefully before we get to the end of this can, the compressor will kick on. Compressor just kicked on. Yay! Pressures are changing, dropping. I think this can's about empty. It is. Let's go for the big can next. I'd love to see the high side somewhere up around 250 by the time it's all said and done. On a day like today with some humidity and almost 80 degrees. But I know the AC is working now. Compressor clutch is engaged, it's nice and quiet. This can's about empty. When the low side pressure starts coming back down, your can's about empty. And I'm starting to get up to that 250 mark that I was hoping to get to. Heck, this might be the perfect amount. There we go, there's those fans. Let's go check that temperature. We got working AC in this car. Barbara's not going to know what to do with herself. She's going to be riding in style. She'll have reverse. She'll have rear window wing motors that work. New struts, new brakes, AC. What more could you want? All right, our temperatures come way down. We're almost to 50. I think we can do a little better. but it's doing awesome so far. It's actually quite nice in here. Thanks to CarPartKings.com for hooking us up with that compressor. Barbara is going to be one happy girl. Oh yeah. Pressures are looking pretty good. I want to get that high side up just a little bit more. And I think, like it says, the system holds 3 pounds. And I think we'll be just about there with this third can. Both cooling fans are working, the compressor clutch is working. It's all working. Adding the new belt got rid of that belt noise too. All right, this can's just about out. And this puts us right close to that 3 pounds that it calls for. High side seems a little low, but the temperatures inside the cabin are good. Can't really argue with that. I believe this can is empty. Almost empty. We're not quite down to 50, but for an almost 80-degree day and humid, I consider this pretty good. I would say that we have fixed the air conditioning in Barbara's van. Well, and that wraps up another episode of Fixing It Forward, this time with a successful repair. I've got to tell you, in my experience, customers, when you give them back a vehicle that didn't have working AC, that now has working AC, they never seem happier. I mean, you can put new engines, transmissions in, they're fine, they drive away. But you give them working AC, they drive away with a smile on their face. I'm looking forward to Barbara's smile when she gets this van back, which should be soon. And hey, if you want to see some of the other happenings with this Fixing It Forward series, particularly with this minivan, I'll put links in the description to those so you can check those out. In addition to that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to Car Part Kings, who supplied us with the AC compressor for this repair. Thank you so much for that. Barbara also thanks you. We have some awesome helpers with this Fixing It Forward series. If you want additional information on AC work, I'm going to post links in the description to other videos involving AC repair, including an article that I have available on my website. And speaking of my website, if you have automotive questions, I would ask that you head over there. There's a welcome video to tell you about our features to help you with any issues that you might have. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram. Close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and I will see you on the next episode of Fixing It Forward.